everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. So in this video, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to actually talk about Joe Namath here, but it's not going to be about his career per se. This is actually a 1967 Topps. It's actually one of my favorite cards of Joe Namath's. Kind of, I, I hate to say this, but I kind of like this card better than his rookie card. Just my own personal opinion, his rookie card is still pretty nice, but it's oversized. And if Topps just came out with a regular sized uh, series that year, that card probably would be worth a lot more, just because it's kind of unwieldy set. Anyway, listen to me babble on about this stuff, which I do on a daily basis. It seems. Anyway, um, I did have a hard time trying to track down this particular card. It took me about 20 years or so. Um, it was just really difficult for whatever reason. You do come across cards that may seem very easy for people to acquire, except you have a very hard time acquiring specific cards. And for me, that was this card right here. I love the design. I really wanted something of Joe Namath in my collection, and for whatever reason, I could not do it for the longest time. I don't know why, but I did also pick up another Joe Namath card as well, and it happens to be this one right here. Now, in all fairness, I did have this when I was a teenager, but it was trashed, and I sold it and I kind of felt bad afterwards because then I didn't really have any more Joe Namath cards, and so I recently picked up this card fairly cheap, and when I talk about Joe Namath in this article that I want to share with you guys, you're going to come up with some really interesting things that you might not have actually thought about when it comes to Joe Namath or Topps, in fact, or maybe you have. I'm not sure. But let's talk about this afterwards. Don't go nowhere. Hold on. This is from the Selma Times Journal, Selma, Alabama, July 1st, 1974. While the strike has dominated most of the preseason talk about the National Football League, one of its top stars, Joe Namath of the New York Jets, is having himself a lawsuit. Namath, the former Alabama star, has sued Topps Chewing Gum Inc. for $750,000 in damages arising from the company's use of his picture and data concerning his career as one of the American Football League's premier quarterbacks without his permission. Namath says this situation has existed since 1965. A spokesman for Topps said the company has not been served with papers and therefore could not comment on the suit. However, the spokesman said Topps believes there is no substance to the claim because it obtained the rights to the material from the NFL Players Association. Joe Willie has also revealed his future football plans, saying he will play out his contract with the Jets this year rather than attempt to renegotiate a new contract. This is the option year of my contract, Namath told Associated Press last week. Quote, when it's over, I want to be free and clear. I want to see how things work out with the World Football League, and I want to see what kind of year I have and whether I want to play any more after that, unquote. So this isn't actually the first time I've heard of a case involving the right of privacy and a sports player. In fact, you can go back to Honus Wagner in 1909, 1910. The only thing is that that case actually never went to court. There is another case that actually did go to court, and that's Harry Potter from 1909. And it's basically revolving around the right of privacy and that the American Tobacco Company or the American Lithograph Company never sent him a permission slip, if you will, for him to sign off on and give back to the company to issue a card with his likeness. Um, That one is kind of rare as well. You don't see a whole lot of cases like that, especially in the 1910s and 20s. The second case that I heard about, or maybe the third, if you will, is from Johnny Mize from 1941. And I actually did a pretty lengthy article on his specific case from the 1941 double play set. And you guys can read that on my website. And if you have any problem sleeping whatsoever, just go on my website and you can read any of my articles. You'll be out within 5 minutes, guaranteed. Anyway, this is actually quite interesting. I couldn't find a follow up to the article, so I don't know exactly what happened with Joe Namath here, and whether or not he won his case or it was dismissed. Usually, prior to this, judges would dismiss these kind of cases outright because the ball player was a entertainer. So that's I don't want to ruin it for you guys who actually do want to read the Johnny Myers case. I found it very fascinating, as I find all these little tidbits with our sports cards very fascinating. There's also something really interesting too with tops at this time. This is 1974, and there actually is a football strike around, I believe, 1973, 1974. I know Professional Football Researchers Association, they just came out with a pretty lengthy article themselves on the strike. And so I haven't actually read all of this yet. I'm just so busy. I will get to it. Um, but I did actually get to read something from Tops from 1974, and I'm going to read that to you guys because I think it's fascinating. Again, I don't know how much Joe Namath made during his career off of Tops products. This is actually something that goes back to, as he said, 1965. Well, in 1966, the Major League Baseball Players Association elected Marvin Miller to handle baseball players and tops and products. And he made these ball players very, very wealthy. I'm not entirely sure that was the case with the Football Association. And it's definitely not the case with basketball because I think the basketball players really were cheated up until 1981, 82. And actually, I think that's one of the reasons why we don't see any tops cards from basketball in like 1983 or 84. That may be the reason why we don't see any basketball by tops up until 1989 or so, 1990. So I want to read this to you guys, and I'd love to get your comments on this too. And I will talk about a Monopoly as well, so stick around again. This is from Joel J. Shorin, President and Chairman of the Board of Tops, May 12th, 1975. The detailed financial and activity report which follows highlights how we achieved sales of $50,100,000, an increase of 13%, and net income of $1,681,000, a decrease of 17%. The income we achieved confirms the ability of our organization to control and maintain a profitable operation in the face of what has been termed a hostile business environment. It was a year marked by double digit inflation and materials shortages, coupled with unpredictable and dramatic material cost increases and a troubled marketplace. During the year, we adjusted our plans, operations, product line, and prices in order to maintain our distribution, consumer loyalty, and our financial strength in a manner that will permit the strong growth we have had in the past and plan for the future. We acknowledge a disappointment in our last quarter, but now recognize that we are feeling the effects of inventory reduction programs on the part of both wholesalers and retailers. We believe we have soundly adjusted to the adverse effects of combined inflation and recession, and that our current consumer pricing and packaging is a competitively accessible and appropriate response to our environment. We have made and will continue to make investments in new products and advertising, and are expanding our direct sales force to position us to earn a large share of the children's entertainment business. Additionally, our investment in basic research has strengthened our ability to improve both manufacturing costs and the appeal of our products. Our international business should see expanding upon opportunities gained this year. The stand up of two important licensee operations and the establishment of a wholly owned operation in the United Kingdom has activities are activities that will provide opportunities for important short and long term profit growth. Both the narrative and the financial sections of our annual report will provide you with a more complete view of our record than I could convey with this message. That was the Cliff Notes version that I just told you guys. Joe Shorin and Tops presented a really interesting and quite fascinating quarterly report in 1974, 1975 to the stockholders. And there's a lot to that, a lot of financial data that I actually do want to get into. I just don't want to bore you guys. I don't want to lose people here. So I will get into that probably in an article where you can read it and fall asleep to. Uh, I actually think that this is a very interesting time in the hobby and with tops specifically. I think a lot of tops problems started in about 1966 with Marvin Miller. And, Marvin Miller is in the Hall of Fame. He's, I believe, the only executive that is not a baseball executive. He's a union guy who was put in the Hall of Fame. Um, I'm not sure if this is good for baseball or not. I'm just not sure. Part of me wants to say that Marvin Miller in the Hall of Fame is not good, and another part of me says it's okay. I think he is a little bit of yin and a little bit of yang, if you will. I don't know if he's good or bad. He could be both at the same time. It's very possible. I think that there is a destructive part to what Marvin Miller did, and for the hobby. And so at the time, Topps was a monopoly beginning in 1956. And it really kind of culminated, like I said, in 1966 when Marvin Miller came in to Major League Baseball. He did have a background in the steel industry and union industry, if you will. The unionization of Major League Baseball is really kind of interesting. But then you have Curt Flood as well, and I think Curt Flood suing Major League Baseball, and I think it was 1971, although in 1968, 69 was kind of technically the end of his career because he refused to report to the Philadelphia Phillies. In any event, I think that really kind of snowballed to what we see in 1980 with Judge Clarence Newcomer's decision that Topps was a monopoly. And I think you can kind of connect all of these little dots to that one specific case in 1980. And then, what they don't tell you, and what I vaguely remember, was that in 1985, Major League Baseball was going to start this all over again. They were being sued left and right from like 1980 all the way through like 1985, and baseball was going to have a strike in 1985, and that was averted, but just barely. There's a lot of positive things again that happened with Kurt Flood's case and a lot of negative things as well that affected baseball players, and it may even affected the National Football League as well, and maybe even hockey. When I look at a card like this, I'm not just seeing Joe Namath. I am seeing layers of history within the card itself, and this is one of the reasons why I collect. Like I said, guys, I don't just collect the ball players. I don't collect just the cards. I am collecting history. I am going after history here, and I'm trying to tell you guys a little bit about this. Uh, there's just so much to it that to me it's fascinating. It's really kind of like archaeology, if you will. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be an archaeologist really bad because I watched Indiana Jones. And, maybe in some cases or in some ways, I am a lot like Indiana Jones. But, like, my grandparents took out the Nazis, and, there's really no gold for me to find. However, I don't know about that because this could be my gold. So baseball cards and football cards and basketball cards, whatever you guys collect, um, I wish you all the best in your pursuits. And if you guys ever have any questions on any of this stuff, just drop me a line. I'd love to talk to you guys anyway about this stuff. That's one of the reasons why I started my channel. If you have any favorite Joe Namath cards, let me know about it too. Again, this is one of my favorites. I also really, really enjoy this card right here. This is one of my favorites that I have. And I would love to try to grab a few more Joe Namath cards. Maybe his 1966 tops. Definitely his 1970. I think Joe Namath is, he's not underrated. Some people say that he's overrated. I don't really think that. Uh, some people have kind of said that he's kind of like the Phil Rizzuto of the NFL, or maybe Frank Gifford. And I think what they mean by that is that Joe Namath's name really kind of transcends his football career. Again, you can really make a great argument, for Phil Rizzuto, just because he had that 1950 MVP, and he was on the Yankees, and he was a shortstop, and he was an announcer, and so I think that has a lot to do with that. Phil Rizzuto, not just. This is kind of interesting here that I'm going from Joe Namath to Phil Rizzuto. Anyway, I think what Phil Rizzuto had, which maybe Joe Namath has as well, is name recognition and the fact that um, you know Joe Namath was also on the radio, I think, and definitely a name that transcended generations, which is why I know of Joe Namath, and I always have Broadway Joe. Um, he has some great cards. They are pretty cheap. They're not that expensive. His rookie card really is very unaffordable for the majority of collectors, I think. And I think they've always been kind of on the unaffordable side of the hobby. But that doesn't mean that you can't grab a card like this right here, or this card is not that expensive. I just had a very difficult time trying to find a good, decent copy, and while I may have had an addiction at one point, like I said in my last video, this stuff is really why you can get addicted to sports cards, just because of the design, the players, the history of the cards, or what goes on around the cards, the manufacturer, everything involving a sports card. Yeah, you can get addicted to this stuff. Um, when I say that, like, I could be addicted, sure, absolutely. I love cards. I can't see myself not collecting vintage sports cards. Maybe a little bit of modern cards. Who knows? But guys, again, thank you so much for stopping by and hearing what I have to say about this. And I definitely want to get your opinions as well. And it's one of the reasons why I started this channel, so I could talk to you and you could talk to me. So, guys, I will talk to you later, hopefully, and have a good one. Thanks. Bye.